everyone, Happy New Year and welcome back to my allotment. But yeah, so it's given me a bit more time to launch my YouTube project for the year though, which is I want to do a bit of a vlog of what I get up to on the plot every week. So I've not decided yet on the length of each video, and so it's all a bit of trial and error, but if you give me some feedback that'd be great. So the first week has actually been busier than I thought, so maybe because I've been procrastinating, but at least I finally managed to plant out my broad beans, my field beans, and I will show you how I do that. And I also did some harvesting, some more veg I've got growing, and I also tidied out the last of Christmas from the house, and a lot of that ended up on the plot. So sit back and enjoy, and I hope I can see you again soon on Instagram. After being a very, very frosty morning, it finally thawed enough for me to plant out my broad beans and my field beans. So I've got aquadulture long pod here. I sowed these in November, and I have wizard field beans here sown in October. And you see there's quite a big difference in the speed of growth. The field beans are generally used as a green manure, but I am going to grow them for the pods, the beans, because this variety specifically is supposed to be very tasty and can be a vigorous plant, smaller pods and smaller beans, but I'm going to compare the two next year and see which one I prefer. They have the same growing conditions though, so it's fairly straightforward. I'm going to go for double rows, so there'll be 40 to 45 centimeter between the rows. You have to remember that these kind of beans, they tiller, they send up several shoots, so they take up quite a lot of space, so you don't want to crown them in too tight. That's gonna hamper their growth and also then lead to a smaller harvest, so you want to give them the space now, even though it looks ludicrous when they're so small. You will thank yourself later. So really, they should have been planted sooner, but there just hasn't been time, and they've looked happy, so I've kept them in. But today is the day. So I'm gonna try to spread however many plants I've got in a row across the bed. You want to aim for somewhere between 10 to 20 centimeter between each plant. I think 10 will be too tight here and 20 will be too far, so it'll probably be around 15. But yeah. It doesn't need to be exact, does it? So yeah, I'm gonna use my dibber where I've marked up distances along it and draw some lines and then get going. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about my broad beans. I had a great year with them last year. I sowed my first lot, I think, in December or even on the 1st of January, very late, but I just had no time for the allotment that year. And that early sowing cropped some of the earliest I've ever had. So I really, really wanted to sow some this autumn now and see if I could get that same early crop. The winter was so mild that year, so there was no problem growing them in the middle of winter. This year it's colder, much colder, so I'm hoping that some of the pests won't rear their ugly head as much as they did in 2020. The early sowing of the broad beans did get rust on the leaves, which just shows up as these brown spots. It will eventually kill the plant, I think, but at that point they'd finished cropping. I sowed another lot later that spring, and that was the same variety as I'd sown midwinter, plus another later variety. So I actually had 3 lots of broad beans with consecutive harvests, which was really good. I've never had such a long season, so I'm trying to replicate that this year. And if you've tried broad beans before and you've decided you really don't like them, maybe have another go and pick them really, really young. That way that second skin that covers the actual bean is not going to be too tough, and you can actually just eat them as they are. So for some reason the germination on the field beans was a bit uneven. Most of them are nice, and I've put the similar sized one in one row, and then I have a few smaller ones that I thought I'd put here. So I quite like to use these slightly deeper module trays for larger plants like these, because it gives them a little bit more space to grow in. So I use them for other types of beans as well, and maybe if I'm repotting something on from a smaller module, they can go into here. But this one is starting to break up quite badly now. So I put mesh on because I want to protect them from the wind, and mesh does protect a little bit against the cold weather as well, not as much as fleece would. However, they're broad beans, so they should be okay with the freezing weather. When they get taller, I will put sticks either end of the row, and I'll tie them in with string, and that'll stop them wind rocking as well. And because the risk with broad beans is that they break in the wind. I know broad beans are it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think they're pretty delicious, and they have that fresh bean flavour that you can't really get that time of year from your homegrown apart from your broad beans. So for that reason alone, they're a great crop, and they really, really beef out your hungry gap, and that is worth its weight in gold. I've just popped down to the allotment this Monday afternoon to harvest some Pak Choy. It's really cold and really windy, but you know, you gotta get some greens. So we're having a Thai curry, and the Pak Choy is such a great addition. I might get some carrots as well. So my Pak Choy, I harvest them by removing the outer leaves, just like I would with a lettuce plant, and then they just keep growing and producing more. So these were sown in August, and they were established before the worst of the weather. I grow them under mesh because I want to keep the worst of the wind off them. And there's some slug damage, and you know, Asian greens are just like manna to slugs, but it's not too bad. I've been out trying to pick them off as we've been going into having the warmer, wetter weather. But now that it's so cold, at least the slugs aren't out. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this evening's meal. So I usually get asked what the structure is that I use to hold the mesh up, but they're basically just the dismantled greenhouse shelving that is not in use during, you know, I really only use it in springtime when I have lots of seedlings. So it's a good second use for them, and it just saves them just being stored elsewhere. So yeah, I'm starting to regret now we're coming to spring where I'm going to have to reassemble them again and use my shelving, but hey ho, there you go. So I've got some carrots growing here under the mesh. So they're sown quite late in the season, really later than I would normally, so I'm a bit surprised that they are forming carrots as well as they are. There's 2 varieties here, and I mainly grow them for the dog who loves carrots, so they're not going to grow massive. They are variety Oxella and Early Knot, and they're not really carrot types that you would grow into autumn, like Autumn King or anything like that. They're not storage carrots. And now the dog is going crazy because she thinks she's gonna get one. Come on then. Come on then. Well, that made her happy anyway. So I grow all my carrots under mesh to protect from carrot root fly. But I keep it on in winter, even though the fly might not be active now, though I'm not 100% sure. Because fleas has a frost protective capacity as well. Not as good as fleas, but it does something. And if I could keep these carrots growing, then, you know, I'll keep the dog in carrots for longer, so I don't have to buy any. And I think I've only had to buy 1 or 2 bags throughout the whole year last year, from when the season started. So I sowed my first carrots in March, probably, Amsterdam forcing, yeah, so it's pretty good. We've been kept in carrots. What are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with that? Huh? What are you gonna do with that? Hey? You're crazy. Easily entertained. Oh, it's so cold. Let's go inside. So I've been quite busy with work since the start of the new year, and I didn't manage to do much filming during my Wednesday excursions on the plot. But the weather was much better, and it was sunny, and it was such a shame that really all I managed to do was carry out the bokashi and fill up my bokashi bins like I usually do once a day. It's a great system for fermenting all your kitchen scraps. So in this one specifically went in some chicken bones from our cheeky KFC we had the other day, just to celebrate the national lockdown. And yeah, I mean, you'd think I wouldn't be as busy at work, but that's not the case. So if you don't know, I'm a research scientist at the University of Oxford, and although some work can be done from home, obviously there's quite a lot of lab work that is essential and can only be done in the lab. So I do work from home, but not 100%. I also took out our Christmas tree. So last year I bought a Christmas tree from Tesco in this little pot, and I kept it after Christmas last year. I took it out on the plot, and it lived there all through summer, and I kept it watered and happy. Gave it some feed, and I repotted it as well into ericaceous compost in a slightly larger pot, and it rewarded me with growing quite a lot. So we have a tiny house, which is why we have a tiny Christmas tree, and a toddler as well, so there's just no space for a big one. But this is what we have, and it's been doing really nicely. So but I noticed now towards the end of Christmas that it had started shooting new growth, which is maybe not that surprising, taking it from quite cold November, December, early December into the warmth of the house, and then thinking, oh, it's springtime, it's time to start growing. So that's a bit unfortunate, so I hope it'll be okay. We'll try keeping it happy for as long as possible. Obviously there's a limit to how big I can let it get, so at some point I will just have to take it out of the pot, cut some of the roots off and put it back in the same pot with maybe some fresh compost, because yeah, the house isn't growing. But otherwise, yeah, it's been quite good to have your own Christmas tree like that. I also made my own Christmas wreath this year from some forage materials, and I used an old coat hanger, which Rachel's Allotment on Instagram had a little tip about, so I definitely took that. So I'm gonna peel this foliage off, put it in the compost, and I tied the whole thing with cotton thread, so it's all compostable, and it can all go on there. And yeah, bye bye Christmas. But yes, I'm pretty excited for spring now. I mean, I know it's a bit longer to go still. We have some spring bulbs coming up though, which is always nice, and they're looking very good, I think, in the sunshine that we had yesterday. But today is another day, and it is -2 at the moment, and it is been like this freezing fog all day, and it hasn't gone above this temperature, which is pretty shocking, seeing as it's 3 o'clock already and it's just gonna get colder. We might get snow tomorrow. I'm gonna edit this video tonight and then upload it for you probably Friday morning. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. If this is your first time at my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and then you find out immediately as soon as I publish a video. I will hopefully post at least one video like this a week, and maybe some bonus material too. You can also find me on my blog, and usually you can find me regularly every day on Instagram. However, as you all know, not at the moment, but hopefully that will be resolved sooner rather than later. So I hope lockdown isn't getting you too down in the UK. The vaccine can't come soon enough. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I hope to see you next Friday.